Very good morning, friends. I hope you're all doing safe and healthy. So this particular month, I started off with the series Did You Know Season 2. And today I'm going to discuss a particular aspect of Index 37 which talks about provisions, contingent liability and contingent assets. If you read the definition of the word provision, it very categorically states that provision is a liability. Well, I'm not, reading the entire definition of provision, but focusing only on one particular aspect, that provision is a liability. Now, interestingly, you would see that even trade payable is a liability. Even accruals is a liability, and even a provision is a liability. So how do we distinguish between the three terms? What is the difference or similarity in terms of a trade payable, in terms of accruals, as well as a case of provision? Let's find this out.
सीए फाइनल आइकॉनिक बैच अनअकैडमी पे आने वाला है. जैसे सीए फाउंडेशन और इंटरमीडिएट के स्टूडेंट्स प्लस फीचर्स के अलावा कुछ एडिशन फीचर्स अवेल कर सकते हैं. बिल्कुल ऐसी सीए फाइनल के अंदर आपके पास ये आइकॉनिक बैचेस आने वाले हैं और इन आइकॉनिक बैचेस के अंदर आपको प्लस फीचर्स के अलावा, जहां पर प्लस फीचर्स में आपकी लाइव इंटरेक्टिव क्लासेस होती हैं, इंडिया के टॉप एजुकेटर्स आपके साथ जुड़ते हैं, और इसके अलावा आपको आइकॉनिक बैचेस में एक तो डेडिकेटेड डाउट सॉल्विंग मिलेगी और सभी सब्जेक्ट्स की आपको प्रिंटेड बुक्स मिलेंगी, और साथ में टेस्ट सीरीज और डिस्कॉर्ड, यानी कि आप अपने पीयर ग्रुप के साथ कनेक्ट कर पाएंगे और इनकी कंप्लीट डिटेल इंफॉर्मेशन जल्द आपके पास आने वाली है. तो किस बात का इंतजार है, आइए लेट्स क्रैक इट.
Well, as you can see that I've created a comparative chart elaborating the difference in terms of a trade payable, accruals, as well as provision. Now, as I've already said, that if you look at the similarity between the three, all three are liability. Whether it's a trade payable, whether it's an accrual, or it is a case of provision, they're all liability. But what is the thin line of distinction is that when you're looking at a trade payable or accrual, it is a past expenditure. But when you're looking at a provision, it is supposed to be a future expenditure. Provision is always created for an expenditure which is yet to take place in the future. Now, in terms of trade payables and accruals, I would say that there are two pertinent questions which you need to put across. If you look at the point number 3, you need to first of all put across a question: has the goods or services been received or supplied? In both the cases, whether it's a trade payable or it's a case of accrual, the goods would have been received, the services would have been received. Then the next question is that you need to put across is that has the invoice been received or it has been formally agreed with the supplier? In terms of trade payable, the invoice would have been received. Now, what is the consequential impact? If the invoice has been received, then there is no estimation required. Because in this particular case, the invoice is received, so you know the definite amount of liability which you need to pay. But in terms of accrual, the invoice would not have been received, so it would require an estimation in this particular case. But remember, the level of estimations required in terms of accrual is very less as compared to the word provision. When you look at the concept of provision, the level of estimations required is substantial, is huge in nature. Accruals would require, estimation, but the level of estimation is pretty less. So what does Index 37 apply to? Index 37 applies only to the case of provision. So what is the, two areas of distinction in terms of provisions compared to trade payables and accrual? Provision relates to a future expenditure, that's one parameter. And the second is it requires a substantial level of, you can say estimation, because the definition itself says that it is supposed to be uncertain in timing as well as amount. Accruals and trade payables relate to past expenditure. Trade payables do not require any kind of estimations, but as far as accrual is concerned, it requires an estimation, but the level of estimation is pretty less as compared to provision. That is the similarities and the distinction between the three terms. That's all in this particular video. Thank you, take care, and goodbye.